In this video, I'm going to be going through CLT review questions. CLT refers to the Classical Learning Test. Now, within the CLT, the math section is known as the Quantitative Reasoning section. Of this section, there are different subdomains. The subdomain this video will focus on is known as Algebraic Expressions and Equations. So we're going to go through 10 questions together today, try to build on some of our skills. Starting off with this first question, it says to simplify. When we are asked to simplify an expression, that means we are going to need to complete some operations to try to bring this down to simplest term. So we may have to multiply, we may have to divide, add, subtract, do exponents, all of that good stuff until we bring it down to simplest term. Now, looking at what is given to us today in this first question, we have 3 parentheses. Now, when I have a number attached to parentheses, that means we're going to be doing multiplication for our operation. So 3 times 2x minus 5, then plus 4x. Now, whenever I have a number in front of a set of parentheses, as I said, we are going to multiply. Now, with multiplying, we're going to do what's called the distributive property, meaning I'm going to multiply the number in front with the first term inside of the parentheses. Well, 3 times 2 is going to give us a 6. And when I have a variable, we are going to keep the exponent for the variable and just tag it along. We're going to do the exact same process to the second term in the parentheses. So we're going to do the 3 times to my second term, which is that -5. Please be cautious of your sign rules. On the CLT, you are not allowed a calculator, so you do need to know with your signs. A positive times a negative will give you a negative answer. And 3 times 5 is going to give us a 15. Now that 4x is not inside of the parentheses, meaning it is just going to drop down and remain the same. So plus 4x. At this point, we are going to look and see what we can possibly do to, again, combine and simplify this expression. We should notice we have what's called like terms. Like terms have the same variable with the same exponent. So that's very important for us to know. Our like terms have the same variable and exponent. If they do not have the same variable with the same exponent, you cannot combine them together. Well, here we're going to. We're going to do exactly the operation as it's written out. So a 6x and a positive 4x will combine and give us 10x. Very similar to that 4x in the beginning, that minus 15 does not have anything it can combine with. It does not have a like term, meaning I'm just going to drop it down. Given how the 10 has an x and the 15 does not, I cannot combine this any further. We have found our correct answer. Now on the CLT, it is multiple choice, meaning along the way, if you've already noticed we got a 10x to start before you even drop down the 15, you can actually eliminate answers. Elimination is a strong testing tool and technique that you should be utilizing within that CLT, especially given how it is a timed assessment. Now, clearly, when I look, 10x minus 15, that is going to match and align with my correct answer of B. All right. I'm going to go ahead and erase. Now we're going to move into the next problem. All right. In this next problem, it says to solve. So very big difference. Simplify, we have an expression meaning no equal sign. Solve, we do in fact have an equal sign. To start, I'm going to highly recommend where you have that equal sign, you're going to go ahead and draw a vertical line through it. The reason I encourage my students, as well as any individual trying to pass a math assessment, to do this technique is because it's going to allow you to clearly see there is a left side of the equation and a right side of the equation. A lot of the times, if we don't do this organizational step, you will lose what belongs on which side, and that tends to get us to an incorrect answer. Now, with solving, we want to meet our goal, which is to get our variable. So for us, that means that x, I want to get the x to be completely alone. Now, with that, we're going to pay attention to its side of the equation to start. Well, where the x is, I also have a 5 and that minus 8. With moving these numbers to the other side to get that x alone, the number that is directly attached, you want to think that as a best friend. You want to stay with your best friend till the very end. So instead, we are going to pay attention to adding and subtracting when we're talking about solving equations in our first steps. So if I have a minus 8, in order to move it to the other side, I am going to do the opposite operation. Well, the opposite of minus is going to be to add. Now, this is where that line down the middle helps us, because whatever step I do on the left, I must also replicate that exact same step on the right. Again, having that line can allow you to physically see you've written it on both sides, knowing you have not missed a step along the way. Now that's going to cancel out on my left. That's going to give us 0. I don't want to write a 0 in this case. I have 17 and an 8. Now again, you do not have a calculator when you are taking that CLT test. So working on basic integer skills, using your fingers to count if you have to, writing down times table, those are all preemptive practices that you should be doing leading up to your CLT test. But we are going to go ahead and add this together. We have that 8 and 7. That gives us a 15. I raised a 1. 1 and 1 will give us a 2. I'm at 25. So I was just doing some vertical addition there. Dropping down what I have on the left, because I have not done anything with it, I have a 5x. Again, same main goal. Goal is to get the x alone. Well, now I have this 5. When I have a number attached to a variable, that's called a coefficient. In order to remove a coefficient, we either do multiplication or division. Well, in this case, since they are squished together with no fraction line, it means it is already multiplication. Well, the opposite of multiplying would be to divide. Again, making sure it's written on both sides. You should visibly see it on both sides of that line. It will cross off on the initial side. And we drop down what we had remaining, so now we just have that x. And on the right, we actually divide. Now this is where times tables, if you know them, it will be super beneficial. Well, 25 divided by 5 is in fact 5. Meaning we will have our answer over on the left would be B. All right, we're going to go ahead and keep this moving along. Alrighty, into the next problem. This is another solve problem. So we've gone over the aspects of how do you solve. Let's move through this one at a little bit of a quicker pace. Again, first step, draw a line down that middle. Please separate the two sides. Locate your variable. So I have my x. Always start with moving addition and subtractions to the other side. Opposite of a negative 25 or a minus 25 is going to be a plus 25. Again, very important. I need to make sure I'm duplicating it, putting it on the other side as well. Drop down what we didn't touch, so that x squared. 0 plus 25 will give us 25. Now here, this is a different last step. I don't have division. I have what's called an exponent. Whenever we have an exponent, its opposite operation is going to be a root. So if it's a squared, we're going to do the square root on both sides in order to cancel out that exponent. So if I have an exponent of 2, to cancel it out, we're going to square root. That is the opposite. Now with square root 25, that means what number times itself gives you 25? Well, that will in fact be the number 5. Now, very important, square rooting is not only the positive of that number, but it is also the negative. So a positive 5 and a negative 5 both can give you 25. Answer will be A. Thanks. Feel free to pause the video. Any questions, please leave them in the comments. Alrighty, here we go. Question number 4 says to solve. Now here I do not have an equal sign. I have an inequality sign. Now even though it is in an inequality sign, I am still going to draw a line down the middle of it. Now very important, as I'm dropping down each step, I need to make sure I'm putting that inequality sign the exact same way. There are special cases where you have to flip an inequality sign. We're going to see if it happens on this video. Otherwise, that is a special rule. If you multiply or divide by a negative, you must flip your inequality. Well, looking here, let's identify our variable. We have our x. Always start with moving by addition and subtraction. So if I have a positive 3, opposite is subtract 3 or minus 3. Cancels on the OG side. Drop down what you haven't touched. Here's where I'm ensuring I put the right inequality sign. And 11 minus 3 is going to give us 8. Again, no calculators. Gotta know. Easy, simple adding and subtracting. Use our fingers if we have to. Last step, my variable directly attached. No fraction line means it's multiplication, so we do the opposite, which will be division. Cancels on the OG side. And since I did not divide with the negative, my number that I divided was positive, I'm going to keep the inequality the same. And 8 divided by 2 will give me a 4. We'll see our answer here is C. Again, being careful with that inequality sign and the direction it is facing. Moving into the next question, it says, what is the solution to the system? So this is what's known as systems of linear equations. For systems, there are different routes of solving. We could absolutely graph. Well, in the CLT, you typically don't see graphs, and you are not provided graphing paper, so that might be a bit difficult. You can do what's called substitution method, which requires you to have an x or y alone. Or the other and third option would be to do what's called elimination. Now, I want to do elimination if both equations are ax plus by equals c format. So that is standard form of a line. Only if both are standard, you want to do elimination, which in our case for this question, they are. Now, for elimination, we are trying to meet specific guidelines. I need to have the same coefficient with the opposite sign. And that is specifically for the x or the y. Well, when I look at my x and y's for each of them written in question 5, you'll notice there are no numbers written in front. There are no coefficients. Well, it is our responsibility to know that there are invisible ones technically written in front of each of these variables. So do they have the same coefficients amongst x's or the y's? They absolutely do. But do they have the opposite signs? Well, for x's, those are not opposite signs, those are both positive. But for the y's, they are in fact opposite signs, which means I can eliminate my y. To do that, we are going to combine my equations vertically. Well, on the left here, 1 and 1 will give me a 2x. 1 minus 1, or 1 plus a negative 1, is 0. It cancels. And 11 plus 3 is 14. Then it turns back into our basic solving that we've been doing the past couple questions. Putting a line down the middle, getting variable alone. Well, how do I get x alone? That's a coefficient. I want to break apart that multiplication by dividing. Cancels on the OG side. And 14 divided by 2 is 7. Now, I did not fully solve this problem yet. I technically have to still plug in and solve to get the y, but given just the x, we can actually find our answer. So this can happen, especially because CLT is multiple choice. Use the tools and understandings. Don't over-extenuate yourself with trying to solve these problems. Points are always x, then y. Well, with what I just got from solving, my x is 7. So my answer needs to start off with a 7, and then it's going to have a number following it. Well, the only answer option that has a 7 to start off is in fact A. Well, there's my answer. Quantitative reasoning section has 40 questions, and you do not have that much time. So when you can take these little shortcuts like this, and it's very clear, take the shortcut. Help yourself out. Okay. Let's go ahead and keep moving into this next one. It says, if A is equal to 4 and B is equal to negative 2, what is the value of 3A minus 2B? Now, questions like this may seem a little bit confusing at first. This is just having us evaluate, meaning plug in what's given into the expression. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my expression, that 3A minus 2B. And I'm going to replace one at a time. Let's start off with the A. A is 4. So in my expression, wherever I see the letter A, I'm going to rewrite and put the number 4. I'm going to keep that 3. Didn't change it. I'm only changing that A. Then I'm going to do the same process with the B. I'm keeping that minus 2. That is not the letter B. The B itself will replace with parentheses, and that is negative 2. Then we're just simplifying this down. Let's evaluate. We multiply what's on the left. 3 times 4 will give us 12. We are also multiplying what's on the right. Negative 2 times a negative 2. Sign rules. 2 negatives will make it into a positive, and that will be a 4. And then to wrap it up, add those together. 12 plus 4 is 16. We could then find our answer is C. All right, next question. Suppose the operation, and this is just a little symbol. These will definitely appear on the CLT. Do not overthink the symbol. It is just a symbol. It is defined by a star b equal to 2a plus b, what is 5 star 7? So what this means for us is when I'm looking at that a star b, that 5 and the 7 are representative of the a and the b. Well, a was written first, so a is 5. B was written second, that means B is 7. A is 5, B is 7. And just like the previous problem, we're going to go ahead and plug in. Keep the 2. Now that I have an A, I replace with parentheses. A is 5. Then plus B. Well, again, I have something to plug in for B, parentheses 7. Just like the previous problem, we need to simplify this out. Evaluate. 2 times 5 will give us a 10. Now with that 7, there is no number attached to it. Well, nothing that we can see. Technically, there is an invisible 1. Well, 1 times 7 is just 7. 10 plus 7, we add it together. That will give us 17. We can find our answer on the left is C. Which expression is equivalent to the following? So we have 4 parentheses x plus 3 minus 2 parentheses x minus 5. Well, this is going to take some of that information we talked about in the first problem of using distributive property. Well, let's start off with that first parentheses. So 4 times x. That is going to give us a 4x. In front of that x is technically a 1, so 1 times 4 is in fact 4. Multiplying to that second term, 4 times 3 is going to give me a 12. Then we move into the second set of parentheses. We have that negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Sign rules, be careful. Negative 2 times a negative 5 turns into a positive 10. And now we're going to search for like terms. When we have more than 3 terms and we're trying to simplify, use specific markings to help you and guide you in making sure you are combining the correct terms. Well, 4x, again, same variable, same exponent, and a negative 2x versus just those constants, meaning numbers on their own, a positive 12 and a positive 10. Notice my markings are different when I underlined each of these terms. That is to help me combine them without making mistakes. A 4x and a negative 2x gives me 2x. So right away talking about elimination with your answers, C and D, get rid of them. Positive 12 and a positive 10 is going to give me a positive 22. You'll find your answer is B. Question number 9. Which inequality is represented by all numbers greater than or equal to negative 5? All numbers greater than or equal to negative 5. When you are completing questions like this on the CLT, I recommend that you plug in, if you don't truly understand the vocabulary and the terms used with the question, to see what works. So a number greater than or equal to negative 5. So we just have to think, well, what's a number greater than negative 5? Think of the first number that comes to your head. It might be a little bit crazy. Well, let's say 100. 100 I know is greater than or equal to negative 5. Well, then we need to decide, well, which inequality sign would make sense? Well, when we talk about inequalities, they will be open and facing the bigger number. So it better be open and facing 100. Now that or equal to is represented in inequality signs by putting a line underneath. Think of it as half of the equal sign. Well, we just need to find what has it facing this specific direction away from the -5 towards whatever number it would be with the line underneath. Answer is B. Last one. This is another one with the symbols. So again, symbols in the positioning, just it represents a certain variable. So if 8 is written first, just like A is written first, that means that 8 represents our A. -3 is written second, just like B is written second. Well, that means B is -3. We take the expression and plug in. So A, put parentheses, well, that's an 8, plus 2. I see a B, need to put parentheses, that's my -3. Then we're simplifying. PEMDAS, we need to do parentheses, that multiplication part first. 2 times -3, sign rules, is a -6. That 8 has no number attached to it. Well, technically there's an invisible 1. 1 times 8 is 8. And 8 minus 6 will give us our answer of 2. And that is positive. Alrighty, thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you're looking for any specific kind of review for CLT or types of questions for review, please do not hesitate to leave a comment. Otherwise, make sure you are prepping. Every single day is important of prep leading up to a CLT test. Again, CLTs are offered almost every single month of the year, meaning you can have an opportunity every single month to possibly meet those concordant scores for graduation or get a score that you are wanting to have to use to apply to a school or specific program. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.